29,035 feet. The altitude of a commercial airliner cruising on autopilot. To reach these heights on foot is almost inconceivable, and yet for 100 years Western climbers have risked everything to reach the loftiest spot on Earth. The names of the triumphant are seared into legend, and memories of the dead are buried, like so many of their bodies, under the unyielding icescape of Mount Everest. Westerners climb to conquer. They struggle and suffer for the glory of scaling the planet's most famous peak. But what those who come here know, but few in the Western world acknowledge, is that few would ever reach the summit without the unsung heroes of Everest, the Sherpa of Nepal. For the local Sherpa people, climbing Chomolungma, the mother goddess of the world, is a decision born from economic necessity rather than dreams of conquest. Sherpa don't conquer the mountain, they honor and respect it. But by catering to Western climbers' dreams of glory, they carve out a grueling means of making a living. Most people have heard of Sir Edmund Hillary's historic first summit in 1953, but few know the name of his Sherpa climbing partner. Tenzing Norgay stood on the peak of Everest alongside Hillary, but received little attention outside Nepal. And few know that though Hillary only attempted to reach the peak 3 times over the course of 3 years, Tenzing Norgay had been working steadily for nearly 20 years to reach the summit. Tenzing Norgay inaugurated the tradition of the Sherpa supporting summit bids in 1953. Since then, being paid to assist climbers from wealthier countries has become the economic backbone of Sherpa society. Risking their lives each climbing season, Sherpa aid climbers on their ascent, sometimes literally carrying them up Everest. And all too often, they're charged with the grim duty of carrying the dead back down. Sherpa have unparalleled ability at altitude, often carrying loads of gear equal to their body weight. They fix ropes on the way up, set ladders over crevasses, and teach the uninitiated how to ascend. They respect Chomolungma. They know how to survive the climb and how to return safely to base camp. Without them, most Everest attempts would end in certain death. All of this for a tiny fraction of the money spent by Western climbers. The average annual income in Nepal is less than $200. A Sherpa guide can earn between $2,000 and $3,000 each climbing season. Compared to the $65,000 wealthy climbers often pay to summit, that may not sound like much. But to the Sherpa, it's a significant sum, money enough to risk their lives when the season begins each spring. Life in the Everest region is a constant struggle for survival. Nepal is the 12th poorest nation in the world. Most people scrape out a living from farming or herding. Most Sherpa will receive no education beyond primary schooling. Those aspiring to continue their education often walk startling distances to secondary schools, as much as 6 hours round trip a day. Access to village markets and basic medical services often require lengthy hikes as well. It's these daily hardships that help make the Sherpa so well adapted, both psychologically and physiologically, to the privations of high-altitude mountaineering. 2 Super Sherpas, heroes in their homeland, are virtually unknown outside Nepal. Yet they are 2 of the most remarkable high-altitude climbers on Earth. To those who have witnessed their feats of strength on Mount Everest, their abilities seem literally superhuman. With 30 summits between them, Apa Sherpa and Lakpa Sherpa defy what we know about the limits of human physiology. Apa Sherpa has been to the top of Everest 17 times, the world record. Lakpa, with 13 summits, holds the world speed record, sprinting from base camp to the summit of Everest in just under 11 hours. This same route typically takes Western climbers 6 weeks. Lakpa's rate of ascent, 1,000 feet per hour, would have killed most climbers, who often suffered deadly altitude sickness moving at more conventional speeds. But the abilities of the Super Sherpas are often misunderstood. These are not simply porters carrying luggage up the mountain for Western climbers. These are world-class athletes, some of the most skilled technical climbers in the world. Their unique physiology, coupled with their deep and abiding Buddhist faith, allows them to summit season after season with no training other than the long walks that define their day-to-day lives. Compared to the months of training Western climbers typically undergo before an Everest expedition, the Sherpa's natural ability to climb is truly superhuman. For the Sherpa, Western concerns with science, weather forecasting, and training techniques pale compared to the importance of climbing under the right spiritual conditions. Sherpa seek blessings from Buddhist lamas, buy the particular prayer flags they believe will bring them the best fortune, and follow the spiritual practices of those who safely and successfully reach the summit before them. Orgon Tulku is one of the holiest men in Nepal. Because he is believed to be the reincarnation of a high lama, he is revered as a deity. And it is the Tulku's counsel that Appa and Lakpa seek above all else. They value his advice on the proper day to attempt a summit bid far more than they concern themselves with meteorological forecasts. Despite the obsession with rationality and scientific data at the heart of their own cultures, many Western climbers have come to appreciate the spiritual guidance of a man like Orgon Tulku. For what, ultimately, is rational about attempting to scale the highest mountain on Earth? At base camp, Sherpa deploys streamers of prayer flags, believing that placing flags in the correct order carries prayers up into the thin air with every flap of the fabric in the breeze. And Sherpa consider these flags as essential to their expedition's success as carrying sufficient oxygen, rope, or fuel. Before setting off towards Everest summit, Sherpa burn holy juniper and spin prayer wheels. They must also hew to strict spiritual guidelines. No animals must be slaughtered or burned in the presence of Chomolungma. Her flanks must not be defiled with carelessly strewn garbage or crude language. Foreign climbers still study weather forecasts as they ascend, but for the Sherpa, the advice of the Tulku trumps all other signs and portents. Despite forecasts of unfavorable weather, these Sherpa remain confident they will summit on the date the Tulku has predicted. On this particular attempt, despite 6 out of 7 weather reports predicting bad conditions, the Sherpa reached Chomolungma's summit on the date foreseen by the Tulku. Today, many successful expeditions approach Everest with the flexibility to blend the wisdom of both East and West. Standing on the summit of Everest brings different rewards for the Sherpa and the high-profile mountaineers they guide. Western climbers return from the summit to lucrative speaking tours, features in magazines, sponsorships by outdoor equipment manufacturers, and careers as guides on mountains far less formidable than Everest. Though Appa and Lakpa are national heroes in Nepal and revered by the climbers whose careers they have helped to make, they are largely unknown in the wider world. Their 30 trips to the top of the world have been enough to propel them to the United States, where they've moved so their children can receive an education better than the limited academic opportunities Nepal has to offer. But their superhuman achievements have netted them only meager financial rewards. Today, Appa and Lakpa earn low hourly wages doing factory work in suburban Salt Lake City. Lakpa has taken to delivering pizzas to supplement his family's income. Few in Utah understand that the man handing them a pizza scaled Everest in less than 11 hours. In 2007, Appa and Lakpa, with the help of Utah residents Jerry Micah and Roger Kerr, decided to organize an expedition that would bring them back to Everest. Their goal? Train the spotlight, for once, on the people who repeatedly risked their lives in service to Western climbers. One goal of the Super Sherpas expedition is to bring the Sherpa the recognition they deserve. They'll leave their wives and children and the new life they've made in America for the benefit of their people. Not surprising for men who have spent their lives in service to the safety of others. This trip will be their opportunity to demonstrate to the entire world their superhuman abilities and bring them out from behind the shadow of Western climbers. Additionally, scientists will study the unique abilities of the Sherpa, what it is about Appa and Lakpa in particular that make them the world's most efficient high-altitude climbers. Researchers from the University of Utah will accompany them to Nepal and perform tests at each step of the journey. Led by Dr. Max Testa and Olympian Eric Heiden at Tosh, the orthopedic specialty hospital in Park City, Utah, researchers hope to unlock the secret of the Sherpa's unique physiology. Dr. Scott McIntosh from the University of Utah will lead the scientific team accompanying Appa and Lakpa to Everest and will be accompanied by nutritionist Stacy Nix. Even though this trip aims to add to the sum total of Western scientific knowledge, this expedition, like all undertaken by the Sherpa, is one of deep spiritual significance and begins, as always, with prayer.
Ready to go to summit.
To Appa and Lakpa, the physical gifts that enable them to thrive at high altitude and survive atmospheric conditions that would kill many of us are unimportant. The trip is a personal quest to bring recognition to their people and the service Sherpa have provided since humans made the decision to test themselves against Everest. Researchers are reminded how much better adapted Sherpa are to these mountains when Stacy Nix succumbs to altitude sickness and must return to the United States. But it's not only foreigners who are humbled by the power of the world's tallest peak. Even Sherpa are sometimes no match for the treacherous conditions they encounter assisting commercial expeditions. As Appa and Lakpa approach the summit once again, medical readings are taken under the most grueling conditions in the hope that this data will one day prove valuable to science. On May 16, 2007, the first all-Sherpa team in history, led by Appa Sherpa and Lakpa Galu Sherpa, safely summit Everest. For once, they reached the roof of the world in service to no one but themselves. Back at base camp, the Sherpa celebrate together, not a victory party commemorating the conquest of a mountain, but a celebration of the physical, mental, and spiritual prowess shared by a proud people. After their descent, Appa and Lakpa were briefly given their due with stories about their expedition appearing in dozens of publications. But today, they are back in suburban Salt Lake City. They still do factory work, and Lakpa still delivers pizza. But their children are thriving. Whether the achievements of the Super Sherpas will ever be appreciated by the Americans they live among remains to be seen. But here, in their new home, among new mountains, half a world away from the goddess Mother of the Earth, their aspirations are still fixed on how far they hope to climb.